Shandon Baptist Church exists to make, mature, and multiply disciples of Jesus Christ one life at a time in the Midlands and beyond.
Hey everybody, this is the college guy Steve, one more time taking over the Shandon Plus podcast for the week, and we have a special guest today with so much knowledge, just ready to drop that knowledge on us. Many of you know this person, no other than Brandon Petersen, who is the new executive pastor of ministries here at Shandon, but many of you don't know this. Right before he came back here, he was the dean of students at Oklahoma Baptist University. So, welcome, Brandon. Glad you are here. Let's just get right into this. Hey, when you went to OBU, what surprised you about working with students, both good and bad?
Yeah, Steve, thanks so much for the invitation and the setup. It's absolute joy to be back at Shandon. Let me build a little context. So as the Dean of Students, Oklahoma Baptist University in the title, right, a private Christian Baptist university. And I think that's important in a couple of the things of the surprises. On the good side, I would say that I was really surprised at a real spiritual hunger that I saw in these college students. And you might say, well, yeah, sure. I mean, it's Oklahoma Baptist University, but very clearly a large part of a population of our university, they're not serious Christ followers. And so through the years, OBU has been able to attract just any and every kind of college student. But we began to see a real spiritual hunger in these students' lives, which was a real positive and a neat surprise. I would say a second thing was to see the resourcefulness of the college student. From I hate to say this, from everything seems like COVID has a part in it, but COVID did a major number on a lot of things. And to see how a college student would work through a problem and solve problems with limited resources, with creativity and innovation, that was really cool to see.
So most people say COVID undid this generation. You're flipping that a bit. So you're saying a lot of students coming out of COVID actually benefited by being more resourceful?
Well, I would still say I think COVID broke a lot of things. And so I would not go that far to say it was all positive. It took several years after the 2020 time period, in March when it really came about, to see this really begin to develop and evolve, because those first two classes, it was tough. There was a grind in that. But the further we got from COVID, I began to see that resourcefulness and that creativity really begin to surface again and to flourish in the way that they would go about bettering our campus and our culture.
Yeah, I would flip on that. When somebody asks me, hey, how did COVID affect collegians? One of the things I tell them is, in good ways, I agree with you. I think those who were already resilient became more resilient.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of students, they regressed in not being socially ready for the collegiate years because they had been essentially isolated through the COVID years. And so you take many of those high schoolers, didn't get to graduate in person, never had a senior prom. I mean, essentially spent their whole senior year in isolation, and now they're dropped onto a college campus. And it's just been problematic. I mean, if you look at things that I've seen with students over 30 plus years, what has not changed? I think good students are still good students. If mom and dad and the church has equipped them to be adults, they'll flourish. On the other hand, and truthfully, I blame parents more than students on this. Parents who mothered, over-mothered, hovered did things for their students, especially Gen Z, back to millennials. Just the incapability of some students to make decisions on their own.
Yeah. Well, and so that's right. I'll kind of reinforce and play off of those things to that second part of your question of what were the good things and maybe what were some of the negative or bad surprises. I would say, and again, I would tie this into the COVID part of the conversation, the intense mental health challenge for college students today. It was just unreal to see how real it was, from the way that anxiety has flourished in their lives, or I mean, it just takes over them. The depression, the stress, all of those things. That was a surprise to me to see that happen. I think too, and you use the word resilience. I think there are truly those who were resilient prior to COVID, but I was surprised to see the lack of resilience. I had two guys in my office one day, and I just said, "Look, I believe in you, and I have confidence you can do this." And they were like, "Why?" I mean, I just couldn't imagine that would have been their response to me. But just this idea of not being able to flex or to work through that was amazing. I think the third one, and again, you hit on it, one of those negative surprises was to see how involved, and I'd say over-involved, parents were in their students' lives. And I think that plays out in the fact that you would see these students not being able to demonstrate just good life skills, how to deal with conflict resolution, how to communicate, how to make a simple decision. Because unfortunately, and again, I'm going to say this, I'm one of those parents right now. I've still got one in college, one just graduated. I got one that will be going that way in a couple of years. But being overly involved has become a detriment. Trying to protect them from the challenges that life brings is not being kind to them, because when they get into that college setting and mom and dad's not right there, they lack some of those skills to not let's get beyond survival to learn how to thrive. So I think those were some of the negative surprises. And the final one would be this, if I can. There was also just this sense of entitlement that is seen. And here's how that plays out. If there was a problem with a college student, they expected the university to turn on a dime for their particular situation, because probably that was reinforced by mom and dad in some respects before coming into college, if that makes sense.
Yeah, without using names, of course. Give me an example of one of those entitled, because it's kind of weird. You said they're anxious. They're in some ways their inability to make decisions, at the same time expecting you to solve it for them.
Yeah, I think I would just say it generally. Again, OBU is a private institution who, believe it or not, the overall cost is not that much different than the state school today. But it was sort of like we're paying this kind of money, so there shouldn't be this kind of problem. Solve it. And then I could fill in the blank to the specifics of the problem. They were unique to the students, but the commonality was that sense of this should be taken care of because you almost work for me, in a sense. In this regard. I mean, the idea of trying to create a problem-free culture in the university setting is unrealistic.
One of the things I do University of South Carolina orientation, so it means twice a week I'm at a table talking to new incoming students about their faith, really about faith organizations. And I can almost have a predictor of future results based on that experience. Yeah. I'll have some students where the student says nothing. Like the parent is having the whole conversation with me
Yeah.
about the church.
Yeah.
And the student's behind the parent and utters nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, in one case, yesterday, the mom filled out all the information on the form for the student. In fact, the mom asked the student, "Hey, what's your phone number?" It was hilarious. On the other hand, there are students who will step up to the table by themselves. I had a girl from Maryland, and this was crazy. Don't see this much at a public institution. But I asked her, "Hey, Maryland, why South Carolina?" And she looked at me and she said, "I looked at several universities. I was accepted at several universities. And the more I prayed, the more I knew it was South Carolina."
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, don't see that every day.
Yeah.
So being a church like Shandon, who, if you don't know this church, if you're an outside listener, this church is so committed to college students. So coming from the campus context, Brandon, what tips would you give a church like ours to best serve, lead, develop, and deploy college students?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll try to share a few of my thoughts. And obviously, I want them to benefit Shandon, but anyone listening that may attend another church, hopefully you can take these. I think number one, the church needs to really help seek to build authentic relationships and community. And, I don't like using buzzwords. Community can be one of those buzzwords, but one of the things that I did see really play out well on the college campus is these students are seeking that meaningful community. Meaning they are not, there are always those just thinking of themselves, but they were really seeking to grow and to benefit not only their immediate community, but the greater OBU community, and then even the city in which our university was located, Shawnee. They were trying to invest in that community. So as a church, we need to be looking at ways to help build and foster those relationships. And I think you do that several ways. Number one, we prioritize connecting with these students over the programming we provide. There's no magic in the program. But the secret sauce, if you will, really comes in the relationship. Provide consistent leadership. We need to show them consistency. I'm a firm believer that one of the greatest elements of building trust among people is consistency. And that comes from the college leadership to the pastoral leadership to lay leaders and how we invest and how consistent we are in their lives. I would say that we need to seek to equip the students more than entertain the students. We are in an entertainment-driven culture, but I see these students hungry to grow. And so if we can equip them, meaning how do we help them grow emotionally, spiritually, financially, helping them learn some of those skills because they may not get them at home, but we can do that through the mentoring that we provide in other ways. And then finally, I would just say focus on true spiritual formation. Again, that goes back to one of that very first surprise. I believe that this generation is seeking that depth, and we don't need to sugarcoat it. We don't need to play games with them. We need to be able to hit them with real life theology in its heaviness and all. But the key there is connecting it to their life experience. And so those are two or three things I would say we could do.
Yeah, those are awesome. I always tell people, especially college pastors that I'm talking to, there are three things: high expectations, high trust, and unyielding love.
Yeah.
I think most students are able to reach much higher than we give them credit for. And if you trust them in that, knowing they're going to make some mistakes, but that's how you learn.
Yeah.
And you said it, if they're connected, if they feel loved, if they feel you believe in them, they'll go for it.
Yeah. And I think the key there is not only giving them the sense that we believe in them, but showing it by the way that we involve them. when they can take real ownership in something, when they can actually have real responsibility in the church, that goes a long way.
Yeah, so good. Flip the script a little bit. You're not only coming from being a dean, but like you said earlier, you're also a parent.
Right.
You've got one that's graduated, one that's there, one that will be headed there. So give me a couple of tips for parents, grandparents, some things they should do, some things they shouldn't do. You've hit on a couple of these already, but what would be a couple
I'll try to
others?
summarize them again kind of quickly. One, for those that aren't on the campus yet, but are heading that way, whether it's in the fall or it may be too late at that point, but next year, foster independence and problem-solving skills in your students' lives. Let them struggle in a decision. Help them understand what that looks like, and be able to work through that and develop that. I think that we need to help teach them self-advocacy as well. So many times I got phone calls from moms and dads trying to solve the problem for their kid, and I would usually say, listen, Mom, Dad, I hear you. I want to help you, but I live and work every day with your student. I need your student on this conversation. They need to come to my office or I'll meet them for coffee, and they need to learn how to do this for themselves. So I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. I would say the other side, and I'll just say it in one, but as if you have a student in college, whether freshman or senior, if you haven't begun to shift from sort of the manager to the coach or consultant, it's not too late, but you need to do that. And here's what that means to me is that I quit offering advice to my college student. I wait till they ask me. If I feel like there's something that I need to share and they're not asking, I try to create in the conversation a way for them to bring it up. And then I might say, listen, would you be okay if I gave you a little advice? It doesn't mean you have to take it. I just want you to have something to think about. And so it's a shift from telling them to trying to help advise them. You're there when you're waiting and they're asking. That's when the victory is as a parent, I think. There are other things, but those are a couple key things.
Yeah, I think those are huge. And parents, I hope you're listening to that. You've got to get them to the place where you're in a coach mode, not a manager mode. You have got to be in a place where you're in a ask and listen mode versus tell mode. Because they're going to be independent whether you like it or not. Maybe behind your back, and that's not what you want.
Yeah.
So foster that communication.
And I think one way you can do that is if you don't ask open-ended questions with your students, you have to learn how to do that. Stop asking yes and no questions, transactional questions. My wife is the best at this, but when you can get into their experiences with open-ended questions, it'll open a whole new door of communication.
Awesome stuff. One of the other things I would say to parents, hey, it's never too early to start this process. I tell parents, hey, get your student to think mission over mascot. Get your student to think, seek first the kingdom of God and everything else falls under it. Here's the truth. Many of us as parents really don't believe that. Like we quote it, but teach your student to really seek God first in every decision, including that decision to go to college and where to go to college. So let's finish in a fun state. Craziest college story.
Craziest college story is I had an individual. It was unfortunate, kind of a negative. It was a tough situation. Was under the influence of some sort and of some substance, but through the process of trying to get that situation under control, this individual believed that the president was flying his helicopter to our campus to pick him up because he was going to go to work for the president. And so we had to call the police department because the police department knew about it. And so when I called the police department, this individual told the lady on the phone tell them who you really are, not the person that you just shot. And so it was the craziest conversation I'd ever been a part of. I could write a book on crazy stories as a dean of students.
I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
One time we had a student who literally was out of college. Well, technically still taking classes, but they were in their 40s. And I said to them, hey, you can't hang out in the college ministry. To which he replied to me, God has revealed to me that I am to marry a college student. And so...
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, it's hard to trump
Right.
what God says.
That's right.
Hey, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Folks, we're starting to wrap up this summer. I think there's 1 or 2 more episodes coming, but be praying for us. There's a lot of things happening here. We're so excited about what God's going to do and so thankful to have Brandon part of the team here at Shandon. Hey, this is Steve and Brandon saying so long. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. We're signing off.